All right, so, oh, hi. Yeah, hi. I better say hi. Without that, initial hello or something, I guess people are going to think you're a fucking dickhead or something. So, hello. I want to clarify some things. Of course, nobody's always right. We're human beings. We make mistakes. So I make mistakes from time to time. Doesn't mean I'm always wrong. I think a lot of times I actually make pretty logical statements, conclusions. For instance, just recently I had made some comments about the Caesar, whatever, the guy down in Florida who fucking, was a big fan of Trump and not of Democrats. Okay. And I said it's a very good possibility that he's being used. I was kind of saying it could turn out to be a Democratic bad actor and he was being used. And when I was saying that, what I was trying to say was that it's very possible he's a Manchurian candidate. I mean, Democrats, Republicans, they still have that ability, that power. They can utilize it. Okay, so, I mean, if they want to, they can use all kinds of brainwashing techniques, and, the CIA is well known for using these techniques on people. And by now, they probably don't want to tell you this. They probably have a covert to tap right into your fucking genetic code and alter some of the things that you do on an everyday basis just because it can make an influence. It can make a change in a pattern of your thinking by changing some of the DNA markers that are normally marked as junk DNA, when in reality I think they're just extra markers that can be reignited. So that guy, he may have been a Trump supporter, he may very well have been his own worst enemy and could be 100%, and totally guilty. Okay, I'm not saying he wasn't, but I'm not going to say that he wasn't used deliberately by a covert group that are siding with Democrats. It's not unheard of. I mean, it goes both ways, Republican, Democrat. And then, of course, outside of the political arena, people that don't care a shit about your politics, they can also influence you. There's probably a lot of those kind of bad actors, and they're not probably all even human. Let's just put it this way. There's bad and good in everyone. I don't think that people, pick, I want to be evil. It's just that they disagree with somebody, and then, of course, the perception becomes that person had to be evil. When in reality, he may not have been evil at all. He may have just thought that you were evil, So, yeah, if you get deep enough into it, you don't even have to be a Manchurian candidate. If someone convinces themselves of something enough without the need of anyone else influencing them, just based on that, they could also become, problematic. Not that they're trying to be evil. I mean, put it this way, none of those bombs went off. It's obvious the guy, in my opinion, I don't think he was trying to hurt anyone. And I find it very suspicious, though, that all the bombs would be set off to go off, but none of the triggers were set. Who does that? Who does that? Well, sometimes Manchurian candidates might do that because they really don't want anyone to get hurt, because whoever initiated their influence to become the way they were may be totally indirectly related to the person himself, but related to somebody's political agenda, and they could have messed with his thinking patterns and convinced him to do things and said, yeah, but make sure the triggers don't go off. Make sure the bombs don't go off. Because we're just trying to make a political statement here. Okay, Caesar? And he's probably like, yeah, okay. Because he's brainwashed at that point. Complete Manchurian candidate. Do I say that that's what happened? No, I could be wrong. Just like anybody that does their YouTube channel and they make their opinion known, they could be wrong. Once in a while, somebody comes up with something on a YouTube channel and they're not wrong. They just completely make 100% sense, and I can't even disagree with them. Sometimes their YouTube channel may not even get a lot of views, but I'll watch what they say and I'll see that it's more than likely they're not on drugs, and they're making pretty good statements and comments, and they're, and of course I have to respond to that. I have to say, hey man, good job, or I might even overdo it and comment multiple times, on one video, just because I'm like, yeah, that well said, I'll just come out and say this though. I don't think necessarily that I have the ability to be modified through Manchurian candidate factions, and I could be wrong, but I'm only saying that because I feel like I have such an independent spirit that it can come outside of my mind and outside of my genetics and everything, and look back at me and see if anyone has messed with me internally. And then I can come back in it, I go, yes they have, and then I can forfeit whatever they did to try to influence me. You know what I mean? So yeah, I do believe that you can also come outside of your mind and you can watch what's going on to you, not like visually, but it might as well be vision, and then you can tell that somebody's trying to modify you. And I'm not modifiable. I am already stock. I'm like a freaking brand new freaking, I hate to relate myself in the image of a nice hot rod or something, but it's just like a stock hot rod. Anyone that fucks with that hot rod, I'm going to know it because I'm on that shit 24/7, making sure it runs a certain way, everything. No other motherfucking mechanic is going to get in their dirty works to fuck my engine up. You know what I'm saying? So, but there are a lot of people that do, I'll say this, I have a political favorite. We all probably know who that is. Do I go out and stand at rallies? No. Do I hate the Clintons? Yes. Do I hate a lot of Democrats? Yes. When I say hate, does that mean I would like to see them die or anything? Of course not. Of course not. I want to see them exposed, and I want to see them shamed, and I want to see them held out for everyone to see, so that everyone can make sure they don't ever pay attention to them again. Now, of course, that can apply to anyone, but look into it. Just look into it. I'm going to go off on another subject here, but before I do, I just want to say this. Just look into all the mysterious people that died around Bill Clinton and try to tell me that that's normal, averages. It's not, okay? It's not. That worked around his cabinet, that were involved with him, that committed suicide, that just flat out supposedly had died in wrecks and stuff. No. That's not a normal average. Mathematically, that's the conclusion is those people were killed. That's simple. That's simple. Not going to argue with you. Fuck you if you don't agree with me, because I could care fucking less. All right, so now I'm going to go off on another tangent, if you will. Alchemy. All right, so I brought it up before on a radio show, and I only can go so far with these radio hosts because they're limited in what they're allowed to talk about. To be quite honest, the FCC can also give them issues, as well as they're being managed by somebody else, and they're under somebody's thumb. They're only allowed to let people speak about so much. So let me just go ahead and say what is on my mind. If I was, let's say, for instance, an extraterrestrial that came here and messed with the planet, and maybe I even helped terraform it, and maybe Mars was the first one that was terraformed, and then, some things went wrong, and maybe or they just decided, hey, you know what, blow this one to pieces, we just screwed this one up, or whatever. I'm not going to try to explain it all. All right, so they start a new one. It's called Earth. All right? They say this time with Earth, we'll put a big satellite around it that will help, we'll be able to keep it under a little more observation, a little better. We'll be able to do this. We'll be able to do that. We won't have as many problems. And so let's say, for instance, they had some structures built on Earth before mankind was really prevalent to any degree, or maybe even before mankind was created for this exterior planet. And let's say, for instance, they put the pyramids down, okay, they are built them, whatever, but they didn't build them with rock. They built them with the same kinds of stuff you build extremely high technological stuff with. Okay, once they were done, and I'm not talking about the little pyramids, okay? A lot of the little pyramids and stuff, those don't even, to me, they don't even quantify as anything similar to the large Giza pyramids, okay? So let's just get that out of the way really quick. They don't even qualify. In other words, there were probably other mankind type people trying to copy the people that made the big ones. But let me just say this. What if you built the Giza pyramids and they were all made of extremely high technological, alloys and stuff like that, the kinds of stuff we use in our machines and stuff, okay? What if when you used them as you wanted to for their purpose, and that includes some of the Aztec, the Mayan pyramids and any other giant structures that look out of place that primitive mankind, more than likely could not have built. Just quite simple. Okay, what about if they were made of these substances? Well, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what are you talking about? They're made of rock, dude. I'm like, yeah, they're apparently made of rock, is what I like to say. Because if you are an expert in molecular transmutation, or I'll just go ahead and put it like this: the terraforming of molecular particles to your liking, that means you are a perfectionist at alchemy. That means if you built something that was high technology with extremely intensely advanced materials, what's the first thing you're going to do when you want the mankind to grow up there? You're going to say, okay, now we got to get rid of that shit. Should we blow it up? Well, we could, but why don't we just do this? Why don't we just, alchemize it into what will appear to the natives eventually as some kind of built structures out of rock? That's probably the best option. That way, at least they can look up at it and say, for God's sakes, how did primitive man make that? We got to up our game a little bit. So that's what they did. They created, possibly, this is just a theory, the pyramids out of extremely advanced materials all around the world. The ones that are made, the Mayan pyramids, the freaking Giza pyramids, and they used them for whatever technological purposes they were used for. Not necessarily saying they were the Giza power plants that Christopher Dunn says or anything like that. Or maybe they were, but I'm not saying either way, but I'm just saying I don't think they were rocks, okay? There's no evidence of writing and stuff in the pyramids until later from the Egyptians. Most of the Egyptologists will try to tell you that's not true and this, that, and the other. But when you look into it, it's pretty much, they don't know what the Grand Gallery was inside the Giza Pyramid and stuff. So what I'm saying is, what if they did that from like space? They say, okay, turn it all into rock. Let's make sure the outer layer looked like, the outer layer that we had there. Make sure it looks like something that came from the area, like lime. Let's say just lime. Make it lime, because otherwise, if we transmutate that substance into rock, and it all looks the same, it won't make any sense. So make it look like this particular kind of lime, so that when the primitive man finally gets smart, they'll go, oh, they use this lime as insulation or whatever, or it's the coating they put over it, kind of. No, I'm thinking it was probably another substance on top of the pyramid, another high technological substance that they molecularly changed from that high-tech substance into rock. And they made sure okay, make sure all the other pieces of this look like it was made of some kind of blocked stuff, so that primitive man will see it and assume that, giants or something had to have made it, or just they'll assume something made it that was better than them, but they won't have a clue what. So they segmented it, and made it appear like it was built from blocks, when as a matter of fact, it may not have been. It may have been a solid machine at one time. Let's say a UFO came down. I know other people have concluded the possibility. What if a UFO that was so big, a mothership, came down? You don't want to just land it on the ground. It would sink into the mud and everything. So what would you want? You'd want a landing platform. And what kind of landing platform? You'd want one that not only it could land on, but one that it could refuel on and everything else. So imagine the pyramids made out of this extremely highly technical substances that the motherships came down on, landed, and because the UFOs had that hollowed out pyramid shape underneath them, they could land on them, and no matter what kind of earthquake hit or anything, those things aren't going anywhere, man. And, those are basically the landing pads. They could refuel the vehicles, power them up, and they could take back off. Okay, so that's what I'm thinking about right now. That it was high-tech transmutation alchemy that transformed a lot of the structures we see from the past into rock, so that we would stay at a lower pace of gain for intelligence, so that we wouldn't get smart too quick. I think that's been the name of the game from the very beginning. Make sure they don't get smart too quick, because you know what kind of problems we could run into there. So we want to be able to monitor them and make sure that they have a proper growth rate. So yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Does it mean it's true? No, it doesn't mean it's true. Is it possible? Yes, it is. Even primitive man has the name alchemy for that very reason, because there were people back in the Middle Ages who claimed they could change stuff into gold and stuff. So now that's why I don't believe that Anunnaki or whatever came here and made a bunch of biological beings to go fucking look for gold. Because trust me, if extraterrestrials made it, going through space, maybe more likely dimensions, they have already figured out how to transmutate particles into other substances. So they wouldn't need to go mine jack shit, bro. They would just fucking make it. They can produce what they need. They can produce what they need on the spot. Doesn't mean they can produce fuel for their ship necessarily. They may have limitations depending what you're talking about. But if you're talking about stuff like, change metal into rock or change rock into metal, I'm pretty sure they've mastered that. And as far as the power they would use for their vehicles, they may use a whole different technique for that kind of stuff. They may not be able to produce that fuel on the spot, but they can manipulate something to make the fuel for them on the spot. In other words, they can create and transmutate, but they can also have limitations on certain things depending on what it is. So so I'm just saying, just like we have to gas up our vehicles, they probably still have to gas up their vehicles, but they still, at the same time, even primitive mankind from this plateau, from Earth, they could come up with terms like alchemy, because apparently they had some inside information that technology existed. Was it passed on to them? Probably. Were they capable of changing simple rock into gold? Well, there is some clues that there were people that could do alchemy. I mean, there was a high standing for alchemists back then. So apparently somebody could do stuff. Now, if you're thinking of stuff like Warlocks and stuff, now you're talking about something that goes in another direction. For instance, you know, the warlocks of the past, Merlin, and like in science fiction, Harry Potter. How do we know that those warlocks weren't just engendered with the capabilities they have from extraterrestrials? Why wouldn't that be the case? Because it's more than likely the case. That's why. It's not that they learned how to freaking do all that stuff. It's because they were given the opportunity through some sort of fusion of education from others, and they were able to do that stuff eventually. They were eventually able to do some stuff, and it impressed the kings of those Middle Ages and stuff. They're like, man, how'd you learn how to do that? How'd you do that? It's, of course they can't give the secret away, because then they wouldn't be a warlock. They wouldn't be given, they would be looked at more as a spy. If the king found out they were getting that from some high extraterrestrial, then the king would be afraid. So they purposely kept that from them. It was like, yeah, well, I can't give you all my secrets. So they just called them, whatever, warlocks, Merlin, warlock, wizard, whatever. But in reality, these were just engendered, fused education is what I call it. It wasn't like an education that took a period of time. It was something that, they come up and they shoot you up with something, like somebody gives you a shot, and voila, in a couple hours, you know how to do this, that, and the other. Same with Tesla. Tesla, he learned how to do why our cell phones work is because of Tesla. And why we have, he even reinvented the sonic technology of the Ark of the Covenant, which was already technology way back then, but he was reintroduced to the technology, and he created an earthquake, and they came and seized all his paperwork and all his stuff. That's what happens. When you learn too much and they find out, hey, how you did it and how you learned too much, those men in black, they come and visit you, man.